Greetings, everyone. We are back with another amazing podcast interview session. I am CM Kozeman, joined by my co-host TK Sivgin. And today we will be continuing our discussions of the amazing extraterrestrial creatures and the strange UFO encounter aliens depicted in the 1996 book, The Field Guide to Extraterrestrials by Patrick Huyghe and illustrated by Harry Trumbore. If you didn't watch the previous episode, the link is in the video description. Also in the video description is a link to TK Sivgin's Patreon and my Patreon. Please consider donating to us. If you like these UFO depictions, please remember that both of us spend considerable amounts of time preparing this podcast. So as a token of your gratitude, even $1 a day really helps. And how is it going, TK? How are things for you?
It's going good. Here it's almost as hot as it is in Turkey.
I mean, it was like sweltering over here, 30 degrees. I actually wanted to record this earlier this week, but the weather was so hot, I literally could not think. I had to run into a air-conditioned shopping mall and work there, like the urbanite weak man simp that I am. So I just couldn't concentrate. Today, though, we woke up with this amazing rain, and suddenly it's like the city collectively breathed a sigh of relief. And now I'm feeling very spry and energetic.
That's good, but the thing is, I think it will get worse every year.
Yes. I mean, after the end of every summer, we think, okay, there's one more year. And then when that time passes, I mean, last year, this time I was swimming in the Bosphorus. I was just going into this concrete seaside place and just jumping into the sea.
Didn't you make a video about that?
Yep. Actually,
I think I commented under that. Oh, look, Turkish Baywatch.
Or another Turkish Bosphorian cryptid. I still have the
sea memo.
Yeah.
There's like sea monkeys. There's now the sea memo.
Stellar's Bosphorian sea ape. So there's one for you. So let's go back to the UFO creatures, and I'm gonna hand the gong over to you, so to speak. So which creature should we discuss next? I'll let you go on.
I think we could talk about the robotic ones again, especially the tombstone.
Oh, yes.
First question, in All Tomorrows, isn't there a creature that looks just like that?
Exactly. I mean, I have to thank you for having a keen eye. In All Tomorrows, my teenage science fiction book, there's a scene in which a far future machine human embraces a far future genetically modified human. The story is too long, but let us summarize it this way. And the machine human's depiction is directly inspired by this creature. I don't know, something about this creature, after seeing it in this book, really stuck with me. You know, it's another one of those robotic aliens that actually, I mean, as a whole, the UFO lore is pretty fantastic, you have to admit, but it really stays as a plausible alien. I mean, it really looks like a plausible alien creature that, let's say, a plausible alien robotic exploration device that some other civilization might engineer and send to Earth. So this event happened in 1977, and it even has this kind of 1977 robot vibe. I mean, if someone claimed to see a robot alien today, the encounter would be like, I saw this extremely sexy looking blue haired lady with like big boobs, but then she came to me and she touched a button in her head, and turns out in her head there were circuits, so she was a robot. But of course, in 1970s, we did not have the concept of human looking robots within attainable grasp, let us say. So it looks like one of those early, like Stanford University library robots where they have to like basically have a room-sized computer, and then the robot can just make its arm, it can raise its arm and pick up an apple and it's success. Everybody cheers. It looks like that sort of robot.
It reminds me of
What?
and the monolith from 2001.
True.
Came out in 1968.
Okay, so yeah, there's that inspiration too. Funny, it never occurred to me, but now you're right. Even its height, it's an enormous. It's listed.
Last paragraph says the first time a creature like this was seen was in Brazil in September of 1968.
Okay. So it was a repeat visit. But to get back to your 2001 reference, the animal.
It's the same year.
Yeah. So they came to watch it on theaters, I guess. But it's also enormous, 20 feet tall. That's like, how much is that in meters? Divided by, I think, 9.5 meters tall or something. Amazing. So enormous. So let's go with the reading of this amazing robot. So, but for our viewers, the image is in the video description image, but just for posterity, it looks like, imagine an enormous toast bread with a semicircular upper section, let's say like a head. It looks like a tombstone or looks like a giant monolith, but it's more like square shaped. And then towards the left-hand corner or the right-hand corner, it has got this like jointed arm, but the arm looks like just a cone. It looks like one of those early 1990s computer animations too, like with this extremely simplified shapes and all that. So the witness of this amazing creature was one Lee Parrish of Prospect, Kentucky. So almost deep south. So, okay, Lee Parrish was driving home in a Jeep at 1 a.m. in the morning. He was only 19. And then he observed a rectangular, fire-colored UFO. These aliens just, they got their own thing going. Like, it's like a Minecraft image style. Even the UFO is rectangular.
Or like a Borg cube.
Yeah. I wonder. It measured 10 feet high and 40 feet wide, so it looks almost like a shoebox, enormous shoebox. And suddenly, the Jeep seemed to be under someone else's control, and the radio failed. We get this a lot, that especially in 1970s science fiction, I must admit, there's a lot of cases where like aliens can miraculously claim control of machines because, well, they're very advanced. But actually, a lot of those early cars, they're just solidly built mechanical devices. And to take control of the Jeep, like there's no computer they can hack. It's just a wheel connected to an axle, and you have to like physically turn. So I don't know how the aliens do that, to be honest, physically. Anyways, then the UFO was very silent, and then the craft sped away. But then the drive home was 7 minutes long. But when he got home, he realized 35 minutes had passed. Some missing time there. His eyes hurt, and his mother noted that they were bloodshot. So I think this guy just had a big fat one with his friends, and then made up this excuse. I saw a rectangular UFO. I mean, depends on what he's been smoking. Maybe he did see a rectangular UFO. Looks like he had a very like strict mom too. Like, oh my God, your eyes are bloodshot. What happened to you? It was a UFO, mom. And I mean, anyone in a similar situation would know that you could come up with the worst lie and like stand by it rather than face the retribution of a wrathful parent, let's say.
Talking from experience.
I had this awful experience actually, in which my mom was pregnant to our younger sister. So, I mean, it's the same father and same marriage, but 17 years after I was born, so I was 17, my mom decided to have a kid again, and she was pregnant to my younger sister. Of course, in that phase, there's a time when, I mean, she was very sensitive to smells and extremely paranoid and extremely, let us say, twitchy and aggressive for no reason. in the same period of time, the school I was at had a big backyard, and in the school I was at, I did not have many friends. In fact, I had like only two friends. But my parents knew that one of those two friends had the habit of smoking. But actually, what I was doing was I was going in the backyard, catching lizards and small snakes, and I really remember they had these like ablepharus skinks, which are these tiny skinks that look like little snakes. They're bronze colored. So I would catch them and like put them in my pocket and try to take them home. Of course, they would wriggle so much that I would throw them away. So my pockets were really full of these like grass, debris, and like dirt or something. Okay, so the culmination of the story comes when my mom, still in like this sort of pregnancy mood swings, one day was washing my pants and discovered that the pockets were full of something like tobacco or lint. She couldn't really put her finger on it. So during the same time, for like completely unrelated reasons, I got out of the house without telling anyone because I wanted to get some art supplies at a nearby shop. Okay. So she constructed this paranoid conspiracy narrative that I was smoking with this smoking friend.
Smoking with the skinks.
Yeah, smoking skinks. That would be something. Roll them up. And they're exactly the same size as cigarettes. So, I mean, it could have happened. But anyways, and then she put my trip to the art supply place, and she was saying, I came home, and she was like livid, furious with anger, and she was like, "I know what you're up to, young man, and the game is up." And I was like, "No," and then like
I saw a rectangular UFO, and they abducted me.
I wish I knew. I wish I knew how to say it. I saw a triangular UFO, and in this UFO there were three robot aliens that looked like extremely busty, beautiful Japanese woman. One had hair of blue, one had hair of fire,
And
the other. Okay, but honestly, like then I had this traumatic because like I'm not lying, but there's nothing I can do to prove I'm not lying, and this accusation is being leveled into me, and like she's really screaming. It was really awful. Like, I mean, I would not want any person to be in such a situation where, like, I try to, I showed her the receipt I got for the like paint I bought or whatever. She still wouldn't. She was still like, no, you still go out there, you smoke, and then you buy the thing to camouflage your acts. Like, what are you gonna use that paint for? I never seen you use that paint before. Like crazy stuff. Awful stuff. Makings of a future Woody Allen. So I'll leave it there. But so I can really empathize with poor old, what was his name? Timothy
Parrish.
Allen? Yeah, Timothy Parrish here.
No, it was
Lee Parrish. Sorry, Lee Parrish. Okay, so going on with our description. So years later, sorry?
That's the next sentence. Under hypnosis, Parrish recalled the source of that eye pain.
It came from looking at the UFO. So once hypnotized, so apparently the shoebox UFO carried his Jeep up to the air, and then everything else was rectangular, but he was led into a large circular room, and there were three machine-like beings. The tallest one was towering 20 feet high, like 9 or I don't know, 6 meters tall, was black and shaped like a tombstone. Its skin was rough in spots, smooth in others. So it was not like exactly a metallic machine, but sort of like almost like a clay kind of texture. And it had a handless, one jointed arm. You know, the American expression they call these slot machines are known as the one-armed burglar.
They're called that in German too, einarmiger Bandit.
Oh, nice. So it also is similar to like it was a slot machine for the alien gods. Anyways, but they're also
what if he truly was addicted, but it wasn't to drugs but to gambling, and this is like a way to cope with that.
So, but there's also two other machines. So this is just one out of an amazing trio of machine aliens. So the second machine also looked like a kind of monolith, but it was rectangular and it had an arm, but the arm did not have any joints. So it looked like a big, very long cone. So this machine was actually, I call it the doctor machine, because the machine came around to him and used its jointless antenna arm to touch his head and shoulders, causing a cold, stinging sensation. He later interpreted this as a physical checkup. So the machines were assessing his insurance liabilities. And then there was a third machine, and it was a white kind of machine, about 6 feet tall and bulkier than the others. It had a triangular head, but in the picture, it's not really like a triangle, but it's like a kind of wedge-shaped head. Anyways, that's fused to the body. And
Pyramid head from Silent Hill.
yeah. And then it's like softly glowing. So it's like a household appliance. And it made the only sound. And the sound literally was like, never ending. And Parrish had the impression that this machine was the leader. Oh my God. I mean, the toothbrush sounds, I don't know what that was, but maybe it was talking in an extremely data intense language. So it's like the router of a modem. So it's like if sometimes there's these recordings of these Air Force radios and they're obviously transmitting data over the radio frequency.
You know what I'm thinking of, like those old, like, what was it called? America Online modems, you know that.
Oh, yes, true.
Someone's used as like a stop sign, like the beep, 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 beep.
Oh, we had those too. Yeah. And you prayed until it got to the section, because if you didn't hear that, it meant that the connection wasn't working. So he called this the leader, but I think it's the modem. So suddenly something amazing happened. TK, can you guess what happened? They started to merge into one another. So suddenly there was like Transformers, robots in disguise. And then suddenly like one of them changed shape and like got into the other. I don't know. Some obscene machine merging happening. First, the smallest one went behind the white creature and merged into it. And then the white one went behind the giant entity and merged with that. I think this is like the world's first not safe for work. I'm certain there's a fetish for this shit. Suddenly, they all came together as one giant machine and it began to back away. And then Parrish began to feel warmer. I mean, I don't know. I mean, no king shaming if that works for you. Suddenly they all disappeared and they found him. He found himself back in his Jeep, feeling that the friendly robot creatures would one day contact him again and brush his teeth. The investigators were convinced of the witness's sincerity. But remember the origin story here, that he seems to have this like ball breaker of a tough mom. So it's exactly like something you could dream up under duress. And then as you said, Timur, similar aliens had been reported in 1968 for the premiere of 2001 A Space Odyssey. So I don't know what you make of this.
Well, I think like while you were narrating, I think that an interesting thought occurred to me about this transforming thing, because it makes sense sort of that these might be all like parts of a single creature. Because the big slab, you know, he has only a right arm, then the other slab has only a left arm.
Ah, true.
And I don't know what you could, let's call it the lunchbox. Also looks like a helmet or hat that could like fit on top of the tombstone. Ah,
true. So it's like a kind of, Transformers Dinobot or a kind of Power Rangers Megazord sort of transformation. And once more, like all the jokes aside, it really makes sense from like a utilitarian perspective that if you want to like contact other aliens, you would probably have robots because you would reduce the risk of contamination from organic viruses or bacteria. Like I guess all these robots were really sterile. And then, I mean, once again, why send physical biological entities? Because with biological entities, you have to feed them, you have to recycle their waste, you have to get all the air for them. And even if there's like a little mistake, they can die. So biological entities are really sensitive. And in fact, I think science fiction literature, they have all these like utility ants or utility folk, like this advanced nanotechnology where like it's like big machines made out of really tiny machines. So they could all merge into one another or change shape. I mean, I'm sure if something else happened, all these like robots could split into even smaller robots. So, I mean, the infeasibility of coming from another planet aside, it really sounds like a logical UFO encounter to me. Much more believable than all the Nordic humans or the other frogmen or the other things we've been discussing.
Yeah. Another interesting thing that you notice is that it is a bit more clay-like than metallic.
Ah, true.
Makes me think, what if this is not a robot, but maybe some sort of like silicon-based life form?
Ah, very, very, very nice point. Or maybe like it's made out of nanobots once again, but
technically the same thing when you think about it.
Yeah. I mean, because nanotechnology. Imagine like you got this kind of really advanced nanobots that are the size of cockroaches. Then you could instruct the cockroaches to make ant-sized robots. You could instruct the ant-sized robots to make tiny mite-sized robots. And some mites, they're really tiny. So it's not impossible. Like maybe the clay is actually like billions of tiny robots compacted into one like paste-like form. And it's now you added it another layer of plausibility. So thank you so much. I mean, out of like, if I was to rate this for like out of 10 for plausibility, I would give it 9 out of 10. And you could even say that there's a fourth entity that nobody noticed. It was the UFO.
Yeah.
And there, so I don't know.
Yeah, and another aspect, like I mentioned, so the first time these rectangular aliens were seen was in 1968, in September of that year. 2001 Space Odyssey came out in April of that year.
Yeah.
Monolith in a movie, like it doesn't move, it doesn't have hands, but it does have like a sentient aura about it. Like you look at it and you think it's thinking.
Yeah. And actually in the books, the monolith is like an ultra sentient galactic utility device. It can uplift the apes. Actually, it does a lot of things. It just doesn't move. It can open gateways. And in fact, in one of the sequel books to 2001, written by Arthur Clarke, the monoliths can, they are nanotechnological creatures. They can reproduce and like, they can reproduce themselves to create a solar eclipse or whatever. So they're really handy.
What did they do? I think they tried to like block out the sun, similar to what happens in All Tomorrows.
Yeah. They
also imploded Jupiter, so it would become a second sun.
Yeah. They did all sorts of terraforming stuff. What happened was, I think I'm just going to drop a spoiler here, but in 2010, the monolith aliens create life in the Jovian moon of Europa. And in order to do that, they transform Jupiter into a little second sun. And then because of this sun, Europa thaws and turns into like a water planet. And they hope that millions of years later, some sort of sapient life form can emerge on it. They're like really playing the long game, these monoliths. And then they also decide that humanity is too risky to be allowed to exist. So they make up this plan to basically destroy humanity with a very controlled set of eclipses. And another true observation that this is where I directly got the concept of gravital attacks in All Tomorrows from. But then something happens because they're like somehow people communicate with the little boxes, the monoliths, and they say, we ain't that bad. Come on, it be like that sometimes, and the monoliths forgive them, and or did they inject a computer virus? How did it go?
I think in the final novel, like where the spirit of what was his name, Bowman, merges with Hal, the robot, and they become like this almost supernatural entity, and basically they inject a sort of virus into the monoliths.
True.
Human extinction. That is what happens in the final novel. 4001, I think is the name.
3001 it was.
That was no. I think there was 4, and 3001 was the third one.
Oh, I didn't read 4001 then. Yeah. But I mean, all these books were so good, and they had this amazing descriptions of life on in Europa and life in Jupiter. They had these depictions. They had this like 6-page section where Arthur Clarke just described the animals that lived floating in Jupiter's atmosphere. It was amazing. It was really an eye-opener for me. I mean, I read it like as a kid, really, and it just blew my mind up. And the rest of the story, I didn't care that much, but it was just like some robots and shit. But like the parts where he described life in Jupiter and life in Europa over and over again, I loved it.
Yeah.
And
wait, let me show you something.
True, of course.
Look what I recently got.
Oh, wow. So TK has this amazing book called
Making of Stanley Kubrick's 2001 A Space Odyssey. And
man.
This book it's in the exact same format as the monolith.
True. Oh, so it's a book that you read. It's got a vertical alignment.
Just for the joke of it, that it looks like the monolith when you view it from the back.
Oh, very neat. And then I always remember that it had a distinct ratio, like 1:6:19 or something like that. And apparently those numbers were like Euler's constant or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, something like that.
It was a neat book. Oh. All right. Now I'm taking a 1-minute little break because I'm cooking some beetroot vegetable meal in the background. It has to boil for a while, so I'm just going to take a 1-minute break to check on our dinner. Basically, I'll be right back.
Okay.
Okay. All clear. The beetroot, or I don't know what it's called in English. Şeker pancarı, o kırmızı. No. Anyways. I'm making some interesting veggie dinner. It's gonna be a feast down at Villa de Cozumel tonight. What are you having for dinner, TK?
I don't know. I just had a few Pringles.
Oh, you're at that stage of life where you can recklessly enjoy those amazing foods without feeling absolutely destroyed the other day.
Absolutely not. I feel bad for eating this, but at least I have a treadmill at home that I go on every day.
Cool. I mean, the other day, my wife and I had literally half a pack of fucking chips. And the morning, we woke up I woke up like I had eaten an entire ashtray. And then it also there's something about those foods. But when I was younger, when I was a kid, okay, maybe until 12 years or 13 years old, I could eat all I want and not give a damn about it. I had the force of life. I wish I could go back to that kind of sentiment. One of the lores about, I think, Trump was that he was addicted to Pepsi and hamburgers, right?
Yeah, I think I had some cola or Coke.
He had a
KFC. There was this infamous image where he's on his private jet.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of eating like a family, he's eating from one of those KFC buckets.
Oh, well, he had many mistakes, but on that account, I cannot blame him. I mean, I have some KFC bucket adventures every now and then. Like tomorrow's McChicken day, and sometimes it's not that bad to have junk food every now and then. But I mean, youth. Anyways, without getting too much too much of a tangent, so I'm gonna choose the next alien now,
Yeah.
and it is the one on page 76. It's the tentacle centaur, big-headed, wise face dog alien.
Yeah, wait, I'm looking for it. 76, you say. I think I know which one. Ah, yeah, the animal. What was it? But what is it? The classification? Hairy
Classif-
mammalian, characteristic, front feeler, arms and tail.
Variant 4, hairy mammalian. There's no hair in this depiction, but
Yeah, that also confused me. Why does he like call it? Doesn't even look all that mammalian. Honestly, this could also be like some reptoid.
yeah, or exotic. I mean, it looks. I mean, in the exotic section last week we reviewed this alien with split arms and four legs. I think it looks closer related to that than any hairy mammalian.
Especially since it is described as floating.
Yeah, yeah, true. But this is the Systema Naturae. It's 1734 now. I mean, this is Carl von Linnaeus's Systema Naturae. It's up to pioneers like you and myself to build on this body of work and expand it and update it. Like the great author Patrick Huyghe has only shown us the way. It's up to us to correct his mistakes and develop this system into an all-encompassing. Can you believe it? Like a 2 century old theory of knowledge of UFO entity classification.
Oh God.
Sooner or later, they would have a cladistic revolution too. And I'm really curious, like if you coded all the characters of the creatures in this book and asked a computer to generate family trees, how that would work out. If anyone is listening and you got a lot of time, and if you can get a hold of this book, The Field Guide to Extraterrestrials, and that's your art project for you.
Yeah, this is, and it will totally not turn out like Bernard Hügelmann's work. I think we should make some important disclaimer at some point.
Mm-hmm.
I think we didn't make that clear enough in the last episode that I think I'm speaking for both of us that we don't really believe that there is actual alien visitation going on Earth.
Yes. I mean, you could say that in my behalf as well.
We are just speculating for fun. We don't.
Yeah. We're not diehard believers.
Like a psychological phenomenon.
Yeah, mass psychological phenomenon. I mean, my current opinions exactly. I mean, and this is not to diss any believers, because I know some of my viewers have experiences with sort of entity contacts like this. I mean, maybe we are wrong, or maybe these things don't come from other planets, but from another dimension. I think, like, in terms of probability, if you're walking around one day and you see this completely implausible entity, it's more likely to come from another dimension or another time than another extra solar planet. Because, correct me if I'm wrong, but with the state of our knowledge about the universe currently, which may change, okay, but as far as we currently know, it's easier to travel through time than it is to travel to another galaxy, let us say.
I would say it's the opposite. Like traveling back in time, at least that is seen as a physical impossibility.
But
without using like some very exotic wormhole technology, but that's
okay.
Like,
so there,
theoretical. But I mean, it is possible with some like not that far future technology to reach near light. For example, with like those solar sail concepts, so you could maybe make it in a few decades to Alpha Centauri. But that's so, of course, an extreme undertaking still.
Yeah, I mean,
If alien civilizations exist, I do think they do, but I do think if they are smart enough to develop space travel, they will probably also be smart enough to realize that interstellar colonization just isn't worth it. So, like, worth all the effort.
in fact, I just listened to something about this, but I will just need 10 more seconds. Don't pause anything. Yeah. I'll just need to switch off the oven because it started sizzling. I'll be right back.
I could do the Monty Python intermission right now.
All right, so I'm back and as we say in Turkish, Allah şükür bugün de yemeğimiz çıktı. I mean, thank God we have something to put on the table tonight. So good feelings, good vibes only. So let us describe this unmammal-like hairy mammalian. And I'm just gonna go to the page right now. Okay. So this event happens in January 1958. So it's like quite an early one. And the witness is anonymous. And it happens in Niagara Falls, New York, in a violently snowstorm-stricken night. It was 1 a.m. in the morning. These times, there's a direct correlation. These events always happen usually in the dead of the night. Like it was 1 a.m. The last one. This is 1:30 a.m. I mean, why aliens don't show up during midday is beyond me. But anyways, the witness was a woman and she was driving on the New York State Thruway. Since the visibility was very poor, she was driving very carefully, trying to locate the next freeway exit. And she was on her way to visit her son, who was in the army. Thanks for letting us know. This author, the way he writes, is eccentric to say the least. Anyways, suddenly the unidentified lady saw something which she thought was a crashed airplane in the Center Parkway. So we got the parkway, we got the freeway, and we got the thruway. This is one of those authors who's reluctant to use the same word repetitively. In my book, it's a sign of poor writing, but anyways. Then she saw this thing like an airplane in the middle of the parkway. But as she approached, she saw that it was actually a large mechanical shape. It was a 50-foot high rod-shaped vehicle that was slowly sinking into the ground. So it's like maybe these aliens come from the deep parts of the hollow earth and not from the heavens. And
there are so many actual conspiracy theories that propose that.
Yes. And I think you're also reminded of the same thing that I'm reminded of, the amazing Steven Spielberg adaptation of the War of the Worlds.
Oh yeah, right.
It was just an amazing film. And I mean, the way Spielberg, like the tripods come out of the earth, and the way Spielberg made the tripods vomit these streams of fleshy liquid was just amazing. It was like, I mean, such a simple trick, but if something is underground, it would do something. It would have maybe wastes built up or something. So there, in that respect, that was a good.
It does kind of introduce the plot hole of how the hell did nobody ever notice this during like the construction of a metro or something? Like,
oh, true.
It must mean they must have been buried extremely deep.
Maybe deep in the lithosphere. But my headcanon was that actually these aliens, I noticed that plot hole in the film, but my headcanon was these aliens actually were not underground. The lightning, they arrive with cracks of lightning.
Yeah, the pilots do, but the machines don't.
Yeah, but in my mind, the pilots actually impact into the ground, and then using complicated nanotechnological processes, they actually build the tripods in like 2 hours and then emerge. This was my my way of correcting this obvious mistake.
That sounds, I guess, more plausible.
Yeah, because like even if you can't dig that deep, it would show up on a deep radar scan or something like that. Okay, so continuing with the story. So this giant 50-foot roadcraft was sinking into the ground. At first, the lady thought maybe I should get out of the car to see what's happening. But then she saw two shapes rising around the sinking road. They were like animals with 4 legs and a tail. But they also had 2 feelers emerging from under their heads like arms. The creatures seemed to be suspended around and moving around the slim rod. Suddenly, whoosh, they disappeared. And the large shape rose into the air. I think we're talking about the rod here. And then the lady saw that it was actually saucer shaped. So it was, maybe she saw the profile of the saucer, or maybe it was such a polymorphic craft that it actually like rose up and like squished into a saucer shape. I don't know. It stood about 10 feet off the ground and took off. At that point, the car's lights came back on because like all UFOs, this UFO had the ability to control like dumb iron technology cars. I don't know how that happens. And then she was overwhelmed by curiosity. She pulled up to the spot where the object had been and examined it. And then she found a hole in the snow about a foot across, the grass showing underneath. She reported that it felt warm to touch. And that's it. That's it. I mean, this is actually to the detraction of those extreme macho pundits. Sometimes they say, women have no imagination, but it shows that like ladies have better imagination when it comes to creating these strange beings or witness encounters. Because all the men see those like tombstone aliens, there's gray aliens, but the ladies here, and we actually saw it in our last episode too, when Betty Andreasson reported these frog aliens with no heads and 2 tube eyes. And now this unnamed lady is talking about these like floating, bizarre dog aliens. So, I mean, goes on to show that ladies are more creative in that department, I guess. So, what do you make of it, TK?
I don't know. Like, a thought that keeps coming up in my head is that maybe these are like just like if this story actually happened in some capacity, and since this was what was it, a very violent storm night. But if those were just like regular animals that were caught up in some tornado-like wind.
Maybe. I don't know.
Maybe the feelers were like the intestines spilling out of the carcass.
I mean, it's certainly like, meteorological phenomena can be really strange. I don't know if tornadoes happen in freezing temperatures. Maybe they do. I don't know.
No, I don't think so. Like
there have been fire tornadoes though, like tornado together with the bushfire, and those are amazing, like biblical encounter.
I also don't think that tornadoes are common in New York State. That's more like something in like the center of the United States.
Yeah, very, very true observation. So maybe not a tornado. What I'm thinking about, what could it be? Maybe somehow a giant frozen stalactite or something. I don't know.
Like the description of the animals from what is given here is a bit too vague for the image that the author illustrated.
Yeah, true.
Could describe a variety of animals, like could have maybe it's just a giant insect, with the feelers.
Yes. Or I was thinking about like a humanoid entity, but maybe it has got some like breathing pipes or something around the head. So those, maybe she's thought they were arms. I don't know. Wow, strange encounter. Anyways, before moving on, now it's been a program with lots of breaks, but I need another 10-second break because I just received a call from work. I need to call them back and check them up on what's going on. And, both Timur and I do these shows as part of our daily lives, but we take time off work and school. So in the meantime, while we pause, please consider supporting Timur and me on Patreon, and I will be right back with you. Okay. Sorry about this inconvenience. I don't hang up. I'll just call this guy from work and we could keep going.
Okay, I will stop the record. Yeah, I will pause the recording now.
Mm-hmm. And so that was the little break once more. Thanks to you and all our viewers for their patience. I just had to sort out a day job task. And I mean, I think both of us have day jobs, right? TK.
Yeah.
So we are doing this as a very glorified hobby. And once more, any support you give to Timur's or my Patreon accounts on the links below is more than welcome. Like imagine an amazing future where both of us have hundreds of thousands of subscribers, and imagine how much more time we could devote to weird stuff like this. So everybody wins.
You're getting there. Just today you got 35,000, didn't you?
Yes, and it's all thanks to you viewers. I mean, I always remember there was a very popular journalist in Turkey, and it was one of like his life lessons that he first became a big name, and then one day he got like 10,000 fan letters, like real letters. So like an entire sack of mail came in through him. Okay, and he was like super joyed. But then his boss said, "How many letters are there, son?" And he said 10,000 or something like that. And then the boss said, "How many people live in Turkey, son?" And it was like, at that time, it was like 40, 50 million or something. So subtract 10,000 from all those millions. Still like, I mean, you should always keep it in perspective, and hopefully none of us will let this go to our heads. But thank you all for support. I mean, I'm very happy. I feel lucky and blessed to be able to be admired by so many people for doing something which I so shamelessly enjoy covering. Anyways,
will you do subscriber goals in the future?
Sorry.
Will you do subscriber goals in the future?
No, I don't have subscriber goals. I just, as the great American philosopher Fred Durst once said, I just cruise. If I lose, I figure it out. I don't plan any of this, but I just have like.
Could generate more subscribers if you say like, if I hit like 50,000, I will do a video on this and that.
Oh, actually, like I fight a constant urge to get more subscribers in one way that, the biggest way to get subscribers these days in YouTube is to engage in political drama. I mean, with these names like, I mean, right or left doesn't matter. This Destiny, Vaush, other big names like that. Yeah. Or a fellow Turkish brother, Hasan Piker. I don't know if you like him or what you think about him, but I
know him from the H3 podcast, and there he looks like a nice guy, but I don't know his main stuff.
I mean, anyways, all these names, they're highly politically invested. And of course, like, I mean, both you and I have very sharp political beliefs, but the trick is to keep it hidden. It's like your sexuality. I mean, YouTube is basically an entertainment platform. And I've seen lots of names who like let it get to their heads. Guy thinks he's going to become a political influencer figure, runs for UKIP. Get a life. I mean, also, it's linked to our way of engagement with computers. I mean, most of us, we first got online with, death matches on Counter-Strike or stuff like that. So when you're engaging with an audience online, the bloodlust is very close to the surface because, it's a very human need to like really tear someone down with arguments, and then they're completely annihilated, and it's a rush to the head. And with these like political engagement sphere, let's say, I mean, it's that game, but I mean, never ends good. You burn out. So the best way to go, as far as I'm concerned, is to have no axe to grind, but only your thoughts to polish. And I keep repeating this. But I'm really like, how do you say? Like sometimes, let us just say, I mean, I come this close to making political content, this close. But I always say, and this is one of the perks of getting married, that you have someone to like hold your reins for you in that respect. And I mean, I am thankful because especially like, I mean, surfing on hate is not a good option. Anyways, let us leave it at that.
Well, I have no strings attached, so I will now read from the Communist Manifesto. No, I'm kidding.
I mean, feel free to do so. I don't mind. It's
but not on your channel if you don't.
All right. But also, it's also an undeniable fact that I mean, especially your generation, is getting more politicized, and that's a necessary and good thing because
that's a weird shift that happened around 2016. Before that, politics, I think, was usually seen as something very boring.
Mm-hmm.
Then 2016 happened with like Trump and all the outrage and like these like culture wars between like Biden and SJWs, and it became memeable basically. And you will find a bunch of videos on YouTube like theorizing that Trump won his presidency through memes and stuff.
I mean, it could be true.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like the media made politics and into entertainment, and that's why it has become such a big thing on YouTube as well.
True. I also think a part of that was with technology because until even as late as 2016, I mean, you still had like Twitter was a big thing and all that, but until 2016 or maybe 2014 or something, the internet was still like somebody getting online through a computer, click it, pushing a button, making a post, and like it was like a bunch of little essays or little paragraphs basically that you either commented on, liked, or disliked. But now with Twitter and even things like TikTok and the other new media, it's become so intimate and such a rapid phase of life that like you could be on social media with the same speed and spontaneity as like I don't know, swearing at a bad driver or something. Like you could do just like that. And in that context, I mean, life really begins to get close to social media. I mean, both social media and daily discourse approach each other and change into this new, imminent and inescapable thing. And also, furthermore, it doesn't help that the world is, since the last 4 or 5 years, we've been in a never-ending cycle of crisis, COVID, wars. I mean, the argument could be made that in the Turkish experience, since 2007, we have been in a constant state of crisis. The rest of the world, maybe it started 10 years later or something. And especially these days, I mean, people really are seeing their quality of life. I mean, it's very debatable that the next generation, like the kids you and I will hypothetically have, they will not be able to enjoy the same comforts that we did. So already there's decline in purchasing power, energy crisis, health crisis. It's really impacting people's lives. And in this day and age, of course, everything was political. You just wake up to it now. So
I think the decline, or however you want to call it, already began earlier than 2007 or 8.
Yeah.
You had this like very euphoric period in the 90s, shortly after the Union fell, and what was his name?
Oh,
like he said, like this is the end of history because now capitalism has won.
Everybody's gonna be buying and selling products and services, and everybody will be happy.
Yeah, like the Bill Clinton years were seen as this, like, and you can even see that in the movies. Like at the time, the most like successful movies and fantastic movies were like Independence Day or all those Roland Emmerich disaster movies, because it was thought now wars are over.
Yeah,
And
now
like,
there's no
threats
enemies.
to Earth are now aliens or the Earth
Or,
itself.
or tornadoes or fire or like natural disasters.
Yeah.
Very, very, very astutely observed.
Yeah, it was this like the 90s were basically the period where it was thought, now we can enter utopia. And then 2001 happened, 9/11, and it was shown, no, not everyone wants this new world order.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
The US became a police state, basically, even more than it was before, thanks to all the anti-terror laws. Then like foreign policy escalated in Iraq, Afghanistan.
And I think it even goes way, way before. Like, I think the seeds, like the prequels to all that bullshit, were made during the Reagan and Thatcher years, because that's like a lot of. I mean, that's when the seeds for a lot of, let's say, corporate overpowering, like the first global companies. Of course, I also think it was all mediated by technology too, like computers, the advent of advanced telecommunications. I mean, it made it possible for control through distances, because before that, if you wanted to, let's say, I got a company in Istanbul, I don't know, and I'm selling cat food all around the world. Then I have a Hamburg branch. I would have to like either phone them or send them an actual letter or send them a telex and saying, işte, Mr. Muntz, please sell 5,000 units or something like that. It was like very hard to control, but through telecommunications, partially the internet as well, you could like real time direct people's activities. And that's a very scary thing. Like, because it was not just limited to CM Kozman cat food company in Hamburg. It was a way to coordinate security agencies. It was a way to coordinate global companies like Nestle. Like they own this kind of natural spring in the middle of Western Turkey. It's owned by Nestle. The cleanest water in the region comes from there, but it's a plant. So you could do these kinds of like power projection. Before the 1970s, it was more difficult. Then you got with mass media, you got mass lobbying, mass PR. This like people in positions of power suddenly found that they have like 20 times or 30 times the strength, and they were not afraid to reuse it. But oh man.
Yeah.
So I mean,
so add something to that, or have you gone too political already?
No, go on, man. You already crossed the Rubicon.
Yeah, it's like this. Yeah, like Thatcher famously said, she thinks there is no such thing as society.
Oh, did she?
Yeah, she said that, and I think later she had to backtrack on that statement. But yeah, it's very descriptive of that era. Like instead of there being a society that works together to make better lives, there is just individual people and companies trying to make as much money as possible. And we really have not like grown out of that sentiment again.
No, that's very cruel. Like, whether you're from the left or right, I mean, the fact that life could be reduced to a drop-down menu of choices, that everything could be legislated. I mean, I think it cuts both ways though. Like, today there are people on the left who are arguing, or at least unconsciously defending such systems as well. But I think it's like really awful. Like, life, all aspects of life have to be represented and managed somehow. It's just the most inhuman thing I have ever heard of. And then I'm going to start playing Rage Against the Machine right now. Anyways,
we will get taken down for copyright.
No. Yeah.
A consequence of this era we're in.
Yeah. Very true.
God damn it, we were talking about cow aliens, and
now we're going, what you say, what? Anyways, okay, so what do you think? Let's go back to this cow alien. Yeah. And
Centaur alien.
I mean, I think it could have been like, if we are already like in a belief space in which we are believing in organic aliens, it looks like a more credible alien creature than a humanoid alien because sophont life could evolve in so many ways. I mean, what makes it most difficult to believe is that it has a face. But then, did the lady ever see the face at all?
No, she
Because
doesn't describe it.
if it had an anatomy like this, with like these two tentacles on the neck and stuff like this, I mean, maybe the face could be like upside down, or the mouth opens vertically, or I don't know, there are three eyes or something. And then it would have been a more believable alien. Anyways, so for the final alien of today's series, what do you suggest, TK? You take it away.
I don't know. Let me think. I know we could talk at length about the classic greys and what they might represent, I thought.
There are a number of classic gray aliens in this
Yes.
book. One of them is the very famous Betty and Barney Hill abduction aliens. And then there's something else on, I'm just going to find it. The declassified.
I mean,
There's some.
I love the image on page 31 where
Yeah.
the gray alien has like, it looks like the Leverman from the Village People.
Yeah. The gray alien from Berghain Club in Berlin. Yeah, it has a kind of like, let's say drip to it.
Yeah.
And then on page 62, there's another gray alien, but this is an entirely like negative space black entity kind of creature. So, I mean, a lot of people have reported gray aliens. In fact, there's a book much better than the one we are reviewing. It's called, what was it called? A Guide to Alien Beings. It's a free online book, so look it up. A Guide to Alien Beings by David Chase. That's Chace, Chase. So David Chase is actually like a great artist. He goes from he lives in the States and he travels from town to town. Like he contacts these people who claim to have alien abductions. Then he spends a long time with these people. He tries to get their ideas of their experience and he tries to illustrate them in the closest way possible. Like he spends days working on a depiction and he even asks how were the ears shaped? Do you remember how the corner of the nose was like? So these are these extremely detailed depictions that almost resemble these police profile portraits. And it's just like a masterpiece of folk art, if nothing else. So the gray aliens, I mean, I always thought, okay, I mean, when I was in high school, I was creating this speculative evolution universe and I was populating it with all these weird, realistic aliens that looked nothing like human beings. You know, there were these creatures that look like nudibranchs or colonial alien intelligences, stuff like that. But I still wanted to have the gray aliens in there somehow. So I invented this plot twist and I made them these kind of domestic pets of a bygone elder alien race. So 20,000 years ago, a group of humans were abducted from present day Sumeria and domesticated on an alien planet, basically. Then the master race somehow died out and these people were left to fend for themselves. And of course, because of the domestication, they had evolved into something like pugs, basically. And gray aliens kind of look like they are the pugs to the wolf that is Homo sapiens. So now they were coming to Earth and taking samples from Earth women, basically, in order to reverse engineer their basically ancestral genetic makeup. So that was the kind of childhood speculative evolution backstory I invented for the Greys.
I had a similar twist in mind once.
Mm-hmm. How did that go?
When you read, I know it's for a story I always wanted to write, but I have never gotten around to it. But anyway, look, when you look at many of the accounts about Greys, it says many people report that they do not breathe, their mouth never moves, their skin is very smooth and there has no creases, almost like it's artificial. Like you get a strong sense that these are not actually biological beings, but artificial ones, like robots, basically.
Ah.
And no, and there's of course this implausibility of aliens with having a humanoid body shape, because when you look at the actual evolutionary history of humans, we came about by a strange series of coincidences, like the ape body plan evolved specifically for brachiating through trees. And then
Yes,
the
yes.
human body plan tried to become bipedal from that, which resulted in this very awkward body shape. Like, it's not unlikely that many intelligent aliens are bipedal, but it's more likely that they would resemble theropod dinosaurs or kangaroos than humans. Like a horizontal spine and the tail balancing out. Anyway, so if we go by the idea that these things are real, but also that the humanoid body shape is unlikely for aliens. But if these are not the actual aliens, but these are like drones created to interact with humans. And that's why they are so much in the uncanny valley. Like they were, like the aliens, this was the best they could do at trying to replicate the human. Because they have
yeah.
something.
Yeah, or like material limitations, basically. I mean, I'm also, now that you told about this, I'm also reminded of these puppets people make to feed endangered birds. So
that is exactly what I was thinking of.
So they don't imprint on people. So actually, there is actually a subset of UFO encounters in which, like, I don't know when, I don't remember when or to whom they happened, but I mean, there's a subset of UFO encounters in which people see these gray aliens, but then they actually see the masters that are controlling these gray aliens. And I think in one of them, the abductee was actually like explicitly told that these things are robots, but the aliens manipulating the robots look like giant, terrifying mantis creatures. And I think there's a whole category in UFO folklore about this insectoid or mantis aliens that basically they are like the ones behind the scenes. Sometimes they're like the master aliens guiding the gray aliens, so they're all biological, a bit like the Covenant in Halo in the Halo series. But sometimes, like, it's exactly as you said, that the grays are robots and the mantis aliens are pulling the strings. Certainly those mantis aliens, it's interesting to also consider how this, like, the depiction or the concept itself evolved in the last 3 decades. Because first, during the Betty Hill or Barney Hill encounters, it was just a like alien, like a humanoid alien with big eyes. Then in the Betty Barney Hill encounters, even like they have irises, they have the whites of their eyes. But later on, they like the depictions, it's like a game of telephone or a game of Chinese whispers. And then the eyes become black, and then you got this you had this in the 90s, you had the reptilian alien face, and now it's actually like exactly like cladistics. Now the reptilian alien has a life of its own. It's like the gray aliens, but it's actually those like reptile beings who control the Earth society from behind the scenes. And then, and also like in the 2000s or like in the late 1990s, from the reptilians, you had the concept of the insectoid or mantis aliens emerge. And then the grays progressively became more robotic. But in fact, when they first came out, as we just talked about, they were wearing clothes. They had like more human looking eyes. They were even dressed like the village people, as you described. So it's also interesting to consider how these concepts themselves evolve. And it's something everyone should consider when they're studying modern folklore, such as UFO encounters or cryptids for that matter.
Yeah, it's also interesting how like the image of UFOs develop with time, because like the earliest UFO accounts describe something that looks more like zeppelins.
Yeah, airship people. They had these people with like weird glasses that climb out of the Zeppelin. And then, of course, later on, they were like metallic craft and they themselves evolved. You're right. I think there's at least one theory out there that says that these are basically humans have a power to manifest reality like orcs in the Warhammer 40k universe.
Yeah.
But this happens through paranoid delusion. So, like, if you got enough people interested in Zeppelin flight in the 1910s, you have these Zeppelin entities manifesting. And then if you got in the jet age, these are the UFOs. And now in the current age, the aliens come from maybe other dimensions or through drugs, really. But it's a really interesting concept to consider that humans, I mean, it's a faint line of speculation, but still humans might have this kind of Warhammer 40k orc power in which they can manipulate reality.
I think that is what Whitley Strieber like sometimes considers in his books, that these are creatures created by the human mind and they're trying to get out.
Oh, Overmind. Once again, I'm reminded of childhood's end.
Have you watched Invader Zim?
No, I haven't.
Nickelodeon cartoon that at the time it was honestly way too dark for children.
Mm-hmm.
But basically there was an episode where like the main antagonist of Zim, which was
Mm-hmm.
a kid named Dip.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, there was a whole dimension in his mind created by his nightmares.
Ooh.
Someday the nightmares became sapient, and they wanted to like get out of his head and invade the real world by creating.
So I think there was a horror movie like that too. Well, I mean, you could even consider Event Horizon a bit like that. But that idea is like difficult to let go of. It's it's an idea that grips you, basically. And I mean, I would certainly like my imagination to be real somewhere, somehow. I think.
If you subscribe to Platonism, then maybe, yeah.
I don't know. I don't know too much about Platonic philosophy, but I mean, does it have that dimension to it?
The basic idea of Platonism is that basically everything in the real world is an imitation of a perfect form that exists somewhere else. Like everything is like trying to approach these like metaphysical perfect forms, which I know if like an evolution or something, then you see that doesn't make much sense, because if anything, most things try to diverge as much as possible from each other instead of converging towards something.
I mean, I think Platonism could be applied to history or philosophy or like to government. I mean, there are these idealized versions of governments and people, governments, or social organizations try to approach them and like get to them, but it always keeps slipping, like sand from the grasp of a hand, something like that. All right. So, shall we do one more or shall we call it a day? I mean, we will probably do a part 3 of this series. Let's call it a trilogy just to make it like chunky and even. But, if you want, we could call it a day or we could do one more alien.
I could mention one more event.
Okay.
Like I told you, I don't believe in like alien visitation, and I have never had such an experience, but my mother did.
Oh, okay. Today is a mother memory share day. So share away, my friend.
This was actually this summer. She told me she had this one moment where like she was lying in bed at night and a green glow was coming from underneath her bed.
And
then when she told me, like that's basically all she told me, and then she told me, and then they took me.
Who are they?
Yeah, I asked her the same, and she doesn't know. She just says, they took me.
Oh my God.
And they returned her. And that's like the whole story. Like she saw a green glow from her bed. Something took her away and brought her back. And it was like she told me that while we were in the house in Turkey, which was quite remote. I was there with her, and she told me that. And just a few like days before I showed my girlfriend the Communion movie.
Oh,
Late at night, there was a lot of like I did not sleep well that night because of that story.
oh my God. I mean, on face value, I would say if I had kids, I would do something like this to fuck with them, basically.
Like she was completely sincere.
And she made it sound like there was something even scarier that she was hiding from you out of love, which makes it even creepier.
No, I think she genuinely couldn't remember. It's like one of those things where the memory is only revealed after hypnosis or something.
Do you think she could go into hypnosis to see what it was?
I don't think it was that important of an event that she would do it. Like she doesn't have any scars from it.
Still though, like,
I think it was just a nightmare or like one of those night terror things, you know.
Yeah, I mean, in a previous video on this channel, I asked viewers about their experiences with other entities or alien visitations, and this night terror pattern is quite prevalent. And you know what? I mean, I'll go out on a limb here. I am 38 years old. So you are a bit younger. There were always times in my life when I was 10 years old, for example, I could never like even begin to conceptualize what sex or sexual interaction would feel like. I wish it had stayed that way, but it didn't. But anyways, when I was in my 20s, I could never conceptualize how being tired or a serious illness would feel like. Then a couple of years ago, I had COVID. I had it real bad. I mean, let me tell you. So like every 10 years ago in the finite human life, you get this experience which you had like no idea of in your previous years. So perhaps, like, I don't know how old your mother is, but like as we get 40 or 50 years old or even older, perhaps people start having experiences like this. And then maybe there's an aspect of life that we are just blind to. Once again, hearkening the parable of the cave. Yeah. But I mean, you should talk to her about this, man. I mean, I for one, I'm very curious, but I mean,
reminds me of another story I have been told. I am in the Swiss Zivilschutz, which is like in Switzerland, you have mandatory military service.
Yes.
You are not like physically or psychologically capable of that. You go to the Zivilschutz where you have to work for like once a week per year in like a retirement home or stuff.
Civic duty.
Yeah, it's actually very nice, honestly, because you meet a lot of nice old people.
Yeah.
And last year, I had this conversation with this one woman. She was quite old. She had like a serious lung disease, and a week before I came, she had COVID.
Oh no!
Everyone thought she was a goner, including her. She apparently, but she survived almost miraculously. But basically, what she told me, like when it got really bad, she saw like it was a typical out of body experience because she saw herself. Like standing beside her bed, but wearing like this very like angelic, like a very angelic dress or gown.
Wow.
And she thought, oh, it's my time. But then the gown like flew off her body, and then she intimately knew, it's not my time yet. Like the burden like fell off her basically.
That's
woke up and then she was healed.
That was so fascinating and so relaxing in the same way that.
Yeah, it was.
Because
I saw her this year again. She's still with us, thankfully.
Nice. I mean, if you see her again, you must tell her that now she's speaking to an audience of potentially thousands, but her story is known basically to a big audience, and all the best to her. Godspeed. Anyways, I mean, what do you all think about these experiences, viewers? Please comment in the comment section below. And as we slowly get ready to call it a day, please consider supporting Timur and me from patreon.com. The links are below. And any other points you want to add before we say bye-bye?
Yeah, people could comment more names, potential names for the podcast. There were 3 last time.
Yeah, someone suggested all today's, but that's actually a chapter in all yesterday's.
Yeah,
so
they were being cheeky.
yeah.
Another one I think was the cryptid kickback, which it has a nice alliteration, but it doesn't really encompass everything that we will probably talk about in the future.
I mean, we could call it the Dünya Türk Olsun podcast, since we both have some Turkish origins, but no.
Yeah, someone also jokingly suggested the Young Turks.
Yeah, yeah. But we need a beautiful lady of Armenian extraction to join us to make the team complete. It's referring to Anna Kasparian of the original Young Turks, of course. I'm a big fan. Anyways,
I haven't watched them in a long time.
I haven't either. They dropped off my. To me, they feel like CNN now. I don't know why, but I mean,
that's like the fate of every big news corporation, I think.
Even though they're a click away at YouTube, I could just flip them on anytime I want. I don't know. One thing admirable about them was that Cenk had this kind of wolf pack amendment thing. So he was actually campaigning for a constitutional amendment that would eliminate corporate personhood in the United States. And of course, it was like a charging at windmills. It was a huge goal, but I think it was like one of the noblest acts one could campaign for. Because, I mean, corporate personhood, it's like a colonial hive mind with nothing else on its mind than profit. And once you put on that suit and tie, there's nothing you won't do to increase the bottom line. I still believe that corporations are somehow okay, you need corporations to handle shipping around the country, or if you want a big factory for heaters or whatever. I mean, you need to have this corporate model. I mean, corporate personhood, like you could offend Nike, or you know what I mean? It's really heinous. Yeah. Heinous that way. And of course, they can influence politics much easier with corporate personhood.
To ask ourselves, if corporations are people, do they also bleed?
We might be close to finding out. Anyways, but they have got far more blood than people do. That's the worst thing about them. Anyways, I mean, names of the podcast, I don't know. We could call it CMK TKS hour or something. I don't know. I'm all in for a more generic, easily rememberable, but generic name. Yeah, because if we call it the UFO hour or the cryptid hijinks or something like that, then people will expect us to talk about that. So
exactly, we will talk about such a wide range of topics. Like next episode, we could talk about dinosaurs, and then the next one, I don't know, about isopods.
Yeah. So names, people, come on. I want to see names on the board. So please, support this podcast by also suggesting names for it. And we'll be grateful for you if you get the winning name. All right, then that's it for me. I hope we covered a good chunk today. I hope everyone is doing well, and have a nice day. I'm signing out.
Me too. Goodbye, everybody. See you next time.
Okay. Bye-bye.